Welcome back. On yesterday's program, we spoke with a Supreme Court expert about real worries that the Brown versus Board of Education desegregation ruling could actually be in danger of being overturned. Now, it's been 65 years since that landmark case was decided. Well, tonight, we're going to take a look at whether or not our schools are actually really segregated right now, regardless of a court ruling, but in a practical sense, they are. Now, the answer? It might shock you. Dominic Carter, he visited New York City to see for himself. He joins us now.
Leanne Nunez is a young lady on a mission. Here's how she describes the New York City public school system.
Home away from home, but a home that needs to be fixed.
Nunez is a high school junior and attends school in District 8 in the Bronx.
The 1.1 million plus students in the New York City public school system attend some of the most segregated schools in the country. Students of color, just like in the 50s, do not have the resources that they need for their education to be sound basic.
Nunez plans on going to college, possibly in New York City, majoring in political science, and already has even attended several conferences at the United Nations. Nunez is part of IntergrateNYC, a youth-led grassroots movement to improve schools and make them more inclusive.
Our students came up with a campaign this year. 65 years is long enough. It's time for segregation to retire.
And in light of the 65th anniversary of the historic court ruling that found racial segregation of children in public schools was unconstitutional, IntergrateNYC recently held a, quote, retirement party in Times Square to say goodbye to school segregation. Sarah Zappler, nicknamed Zaps, is the group's adult advisor.
So in New York City, what we see is that schools are segregated by race and class. They are not getting equal resources, let alone equitable resources. Who is elevated in our curriculum, who is teaching in our classrooms, and who is criminalized in our school all follow a pattern of racial injustice.
Maurice Blockman has been a teacher for 6 years, 5 of them in Brighton Beach, Brooklyn.
In predominantly white schools, first of all, I had all the resources in the world that I needed to really enhance my curriculum and to make it engaging so that students sitting through a 57-minute class could interact.
And currently for 1 year in District Number 2 of Manhattan's Lower East Side.
Whereas in the predominantly black school, we're very limited. We often struggle just to have basic necessities like paper and writing utensils.
One of the mayor's most high-profile proposals that has caused a lot of controversy is to help integrate the city's prestigious high schools by eliminating the exam that, for the most part, is the sole admissions factor.
I, for example, feel like I'm going through TSA every morning because I go through a campus, right? I go to a campus that has metal detectors and scanners, and I have to drop off my phone and I have to swipe an ID. And students in other parts of the city that go to schools that are different from mine never have to experience that. Students in other parts of the city also don't have to experience what it's like for the power to go out in their school. They also don't have to experience eating lunch in a basement. So if you take a school in a community that is higher income, they're more likely to have a very thriving PTA. They're more likely to have the 20, 30 plus sports teams, the computer lab.
We also see that students of color, when they look to the front of the classroom, more often than not are looking to someone who is white. They are being educated through a curriculum that does not reflect positively their culture. They're usually fed a curriculum that praises Eurocentric values, and whenever they read about themselves, it's within the context of genocide or slavery. We also realize that students of color experience suspension and expulsion by far greater rates than their white counterparts. I would call that modern day segregation.
So advocates say it's a fight that's still ongoing. How does the educator feel as an African-American man?
Overwhelmed, overworked, underappreciated, as if the weight of the world is on my shoulders, and as if it's up to me to, to save my people. Whereas I also realized that I'm a product of a broken system as well. I attended a segregated school where I was usually the only black kid in the classroom. And so when conversations about slavery happened, folks looked to me as the expert. At 7 years old, I wasn't an expert in anything. And I still feel that burden today. Because black men only make up 2% of educators across the nation, we often are just made to carry the weight of that realization.
In Midtown, I'm Dominic Carter. Richard, let's go back to you in the studio.
Dominic, thank you so much. All right, everyone, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, more RFL.